Hey, it's Låpsley, and I'm here with my dear friend, Miss Sloane.
Hi.
And we're here to talk about submission.
First time, it's the first time I've given up my struggle for control.
My first single has just come out, 32 Floors. It's about submission and obsession, and I thought, who better to speak to than someone who is equally willing to indulge in that kind of play as me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've got a few questions for you. So the first question I want to ask is, how would you define submission?
I think, people watch like BDSM porn and they just see it being
Yeah.
like so aggressive, and like they see doms as being like shouty, angry people, and it's not always about that. It can be so tender and so loving, and there has to be so much thought.
It's something that involves an incredible amount of trust, like to be able to open yourself up to that place, both for the submissive person and for whoever is the dom in that situation. How did you get into domming?
Somebody that I went on a Tinder date with, they introduced me to it. I actually was like snooping around their bedroom, and he had like a Gucci like crop on his bedside table, so I was like completely oblivious to it. Gucci, yeah, very fancy. So I asked him like what it was for, and he obviously was like, let me show you. My ex, from when I first got into kink, he always said to me like, you're not a bottom. Like, he was like, I'm convinced you're a top. And I feel like the more that I kind of became comfortable with myself and like learnt more about power dynamics, that was when I really started to realise that I was definitely more of a top.
What is it specifically about domming and seeing people submit to you and trust you that you find interesting?
To see somebody like trust you so much, like it's such a wonderful, like empowering feeling. And I would say like even as a person, it has increased like my confidence even in like my day-to-day life. I loved having people worship me. Like what else is there to say? Like
outside of that play space or the dungeon or wherever it is, do you think that a lot of the subs that you work with have jobs that are in position of power and it's often like a release for them?
Like a lot of subs that I see are definitely, like really, really senior in their roles. Like it really flips gender roles like on its head. I absolutely love it when somebody is super successful in their day-to-day, and when they like come to see me and we have a session and they're like crawling around on their knees like being a little dog for me. It's just fucking great, for them as well. It's like such an escapism.
I feel like my involvement in the kink scene has made me look at the world and the things that go on around me in a very different way. I start to see different power dynamics between people in the office, between people on set. So through your experience as a dom, obviously that is a very like set exchange of like dom and sub. So outside of that space, do you find yourself noticing power dynamics and in a sense like dom sub roles?
Yeah, 100%. Like I think there's always some kind of power exchange in like most encounters that you have, even just getting a parking ticket or something like that.
I have noticed that like a lot of those day-to-day power exchanges make their way into the playroom in terms of like role play as well. Is that a part of your experience? Like, do people like ask for certain things like, yeah, I want you to like give my car a ticket, or do you know what I mean?
I would absolutely love it if somebody asked me to go.
Like, is there blurred lines between what they find attractive about a power dynamic in their day-to-day life? And
yeah, like 100%. Like, there's so many people, like when you think about like even like the classic like role plays, you've got like a school teacher or like for mummy daddy, that person does have a place of authority in that situation, so that's where the exchange of like power comes from. And then I think as well, like people will have experiences that instead of that staying like a day-to-day power exchange, it then something clicks and it turns into a kink for them or a fetish.
the biggest payoff that subs have said that they get out of your sessions?
A lot of people, when they do sub, it is to experience, you know, like that complete like release and like loss of control. I've had some like really fun experiences with that where it's like really helped change people's lives. Like,
Oh yes, tell me about this.
So this guy, an absolute sweetheart. We were playing, like, so we had a bit of like a service dynamic. So he would like come around to my house and like run errands for me. And like we'd been playing all day and like we finished it off with me pegging him. He had like, he was caged as well. And he had just like the most like insane orgasm from like me pegging him, like to the point where he was like crying afterwards. When I left and went home, like obviously I always check in with people, make
Yeah, that's
sure.
another thing, like aftercare is incredibly important.
He like messaged me the next day and was just like, it's like basically given him like a new view on life. It was like crazy. Like he started working out more and eating healthy and like made better connections with his family from it. And I don't know what it was that like switched in him, but it was, I think, you know, like he had such a good time and it was like such like an overwhelming orgasm. It just like reset things in his brain.
I'm definitely like the captain of my own ship, you know. It's like
Yeah.
solo artist project, I write for other artists, I run my own business, I'm quite like extrovert. And so the ultimate release for me as like a submissive person is to completely give like all my power away to that person.
Yeah.
Is there a specific destination when it comes to submission, i.e. at this point we are at complete submission, or do you think it's about the journey?
So definitely for me, I think it's more about the journey, because I also think as well like submission, like complete submission, like varies for so many different people. Like everybody has like limits and boundaries, so like what you see for complete submission for one person might be like something completely different to another.
I mean, I tried to like talk about that in the song through this metaphor of like, I mean, it's dramatic, but like falling off the side of like a 32-story building because someone told you, and knowing that they would be able to catch you at the end of it. And it's that kind of, it's controlled obviously, because outside of the play space we talk about our limits and our boundaries and how we're going to make it safe and aftercare. But like during that session, once we've established those rules, it's the thrill and the danger within those parameters that I get the biggest release out of. Yeah, just talk a bit more about the limits and boundaries that have to be discussed prior to any sessions.
If there's one thing that will ever really put me off playing with somebody is when they say that they don't have any limits or they don't know what they are. It just makes me feel really nervous, because I, like I say, I've witnessed things like that go really wrong, where people have gone into it and being like, I'm a hardcore sub and like I'll do anything, and then a couple of days later it's been like, oh, I really didn't want that to happen. And then it can have such a huge impact on mental well-being and your relationship with King and BDSM, you know, that person that you did that with. Setting those boundaries and having like really clear communication beforehand is such a huge thing. Agreeing safe words. I mean, I usually just use the standard like amber and red, unless anybody's got like a specific word. I had somebody use the word wardrobe once.
Wardrobe.
So I find like if there's anything that you're not sure about, like just reiterating like, okay, like what is it that you actually mean by that? Like, can you think of like a specific example that you actually like that you wouldn't want to happen? Like on the day, the first thing, like when I'm speaking to whoever I'm playing with, like I'll always ask them to just talk me through their limits again, but also like be like, what are you excited for? Like what, like talk to me about like what you want to happen. And like I definitely don't recommend like jumping straight into
because you need to have these limits in order to be able to push them right to the edge, which is kind of like where the thrill is often. But I personally think that if this is something that you're interested, to really just sit down with yourself or even go on a dog walk and just have a proper think about like what are the details and the depths that you're willing to go or that you're interested in, and then discussing them with someone who has experience.
100%. Crossbreed is such a great space, and I like definitely think such a good party to go to.
And the socials as well.
Yeah.
Queer spaces are often the best spaces in terms of like you feel the safest.
Yeah. kink is more widely spoken about now. If you think about 20 years ago, like we were joking right earlier about like your lipstick, you know, like 20 years ago, like you would have been called like a tart for like wearing a red lip.
Well, thank you for listening. This is Låpsley and Miss Sloane.
Thank you. Thanks for talking to me.
Yeah, that was it. We've always said that we've wanted to do this, so
it's good to do it.
Yeah, in my kitchen.
Yes.
You can stream 32 Floors on all platforms now.
Yes.